Season 2, Episode 2, we're back. An annual type of episode now. We are back with some SEMA information. And you know what? SEMA, you can go anywhere. SEMA is everywhere for content.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about some unique builds that maybe you didn't see on your feed or on your gram or on your ticket-talking. And we'll get into that in a second. First, let me introduce Randy Spar, co-owner of 11Tenths. I am David Balazic, Milk for Coffee. Let's dive right into it. So, SEMA.
Yep.
Back from hiatus.
Yep.
Okay.
2 years.
Hellcats everywhere.
Yeah.
Or Hellcat motors everywhere.
Hellcat swaps, Tesla swaps, and over fenders. That's the theme.
Yeah. So you were telling me earlier that if you didn't have some sort of over fender or wide body, it's like you weren't SEMA worthy.
Yeah.
Right.
It seemed like it. It's terrible. I mean, even just molding in the over fenders so they don't look like over fenders, but. You know, it's just that whole really wide, low stance. I mean, it does look beautiful.
Yeah, when done right.
Yeah.
When done right. Which,
I
at
agree.
SEMA, you would think that at least all the cars are done right. I know
Correct.
some of the trucks are hit and miss.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So would you say that, have they perfected it? Like, are you seeing some consistency of quality at least? Or you think there's still a lot to be desired in that arena?
No, I don't look at these big trucks, right? So when I look at the cars are always flawless.
So the wide bodies are...
Yeah, they all look perfect. They're beautiful.
Yeah. And okay, what about the trend of seeing the fasteners versus molded? What do you think is kind of the go-to now?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think it's all personal preference. It's whoever's building the car. If they don't want to see any of the hardware, they mold it in. It does look. It doesn't look as obvious then. Which I personally like. It looks like an OEM Plus.
Yep.
So it's kind of like the Porsche Turbo versus the narrow body 911. It's just,
So, okay, so on that point, there was one car that you really, really liked. You told me was it Hurican?
Yeah.
Like fully carbon fiber.
A full carbon Huracan there. I mean, it was gorgeous.
And you like the point why that was so good was because you've got a wide body Huracan. Obviously, carbon fiber panels, if you're molding, each panel is a special on its own.
Yeah.
But to make it cleanly integrate where it looks like it's actually from the factory, not just an extension.
If you looked at it from the side, you couldn't tell it was a wide body. But if you looked at it from three-quarter view, then you could actually see the width of it, right?
Gotcha.
That's what I'm talking about. Those are my favorite ones.
Clean integration, right? So so Hellcats. Let's start there, and it's not actually Hellcats; it's the Hellcat motor.
Hellcat motor. Correct.
The idea that we're at a peak here. We all know that it's a transition, gas and electric. So if you're going to get a motor right now that's still gas, the Hellcat motor or the crate Hellephant motor, either way, are the go-to motor. Nothing makes more power out of the box. It's supercharged.
That's it. Yep.
Right.
It's a relatively small package.
And
it's a bit of a taller package because the blower sits on top.
Right.
But it'll fit in most engine bays.
So out of all the Hellcat swaps, what was kind of your fave there?
There was a couple that stood out. There's one. It was looked like an older AC Cobra replica, maybe a super performance car that had. It was a really clean looking car. It was like a really dark brown, black wheels, and it had a Hellcat swap on it.
It looked black by pictures, but
it was actually like really, really dark brown. But it was in a shaded area, so the sun not hitting the.
Maybe
paint
it had like a flake in it or something.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a gorgeous car.
I don't know about brown cars. I just see brown. I see 1970s, but there are some brown cars, even from like manufacturers that really. Actually, in our family, we own a brown car, which I despise. Don't tell my wife. But like, there are some brown cars that really do look beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a thing. What else? There was on Beamer stuff. There was an M2 with they shoehorned that motor into that.
That was a really nice build. It was.
Did it look tight in the bay?
It was. Yeah, it was a tight fit. He had an aftermarket transmission on there. I think it was a drift car actually. It was
that makes sense.
Interior wise, is a full-on race car interior.
So so you have to gut the interior to make space and probably some weight distribution maybe in there. I imagine.
Yeah, that was a really nice build too.
Okay.
That was actually kind of a surprise. I stumbled on that. I was just walking through. I stopped and like, whoa,
something a little different.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So and then there was that weird truck, like it was like a patina truck, but it was like all chains all over it?
Yeah, the chain smoker. It was like an old diesel.
Okay.
It was an old rat rod type thing, and the guy had probably spent a year
tack welding chain.
Every single link of chain around that thing.
That's pretty cool.
And that was pretty cool. Especially at the last day on the Friday during the parade as it's leaving, the thing was just spewing black smoke everywhere, doing what it does best, chain smoking, right? So
speaking of things that were done best, there was an Infiniti G35 or 37 that apparently was able to rev better than everyone else.
Oh God, this guy was like, he had his flame tune on there, and he's just like popping and farting and.
It's I remember my first time.
Yeah, everyone's staring at their beautiful, like all these beautiful cars, and then you got the loud kid over there, seeking attention.
So I will disclaim I didn't get to join Randy this year, but just seeing that video and just there's other cars in the video, and it's like you can hear down the distance.
He just wouldn't stop. He just wouldn't stop popping.
Okay, beyond that. So obviously the build. The one thing I like about those trucks, and I wonder if that's something that kind of relates to each other. Mm-hmm. Those older trucks, they were like the original over fenders because they had that narrow body look and these beautiful curved arches.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. And stay tuned because we'll talk about more beautiful bodies.
Yeah.
On cars later on, because not only SEMA, I'm teasing ahead in this podcast here, the boys also went to the Peterson. So we'll get back to that. Let's talk more about SEMA. So trucks. I mean, we don't really talk trucks too much here, but if we're going to talk about it, you saw an absolutely clean C10.
Yeah, like if you ever end up going to SEMA, try and make it out to the Toyo tunnel. They always have like some of the best cars and trucks on display there. So it's called the Treadpass, I believe, and they usually have about 20 or 30 vehicles in there, and they're just like cream of the crop, incredible.
Okay.
And there are countless. There's a wide body M2 and a crazy Pandem 850 CI.
Oh yeah.
There's an old Superformance. What do they have?
The Hurican guys were in that booth, weren't they?
No, they weren't. Yeah, they had a separate one. There are a couple of Benzes there. There's a full carbon R32, some GTRs, a wide body Ferrari. Wide body C8. They had Broncos, lots of Broncos, but there was this one GMC, was a CK. It was a full Tesla powered older CK truck.
One motor,
tri-motor. Two motors in the back, one in the front.
So the electric equivalent of a Hellcat motor.
it was a beautiful build. I mean, and that seemed to be like there were a lot of companies there that were pushing a lot of the electrification swaps. And they're all hovering around $50,000 US for a full swap.
It's not cheap, but it sounds like that'll come down.
Yeah,
that will come down
eventually. Yeah,
and from what I heard from keeping up on the news and stuff, it's not just the ease of swapping. They're actually trying to make a lot of these motors and systems look less electrified. Like there's a whole stream of manufacturers that are making electric motors that look like your classic motor.
Well, generally there are two ways of going about it. You can either get a motor and mount it up front and have a transfer case that drops down onto a transmission or a drive shaft that powers the rear, or you would actually integrate like a Tesla subframe onto the rear and have the rear motors like where the rear diff is.
Okay.
Right. So there are kind of two different ways about doing it. So there's it depends on who you're going to, and it depends on your layout too. What kind of room you have and what kind of, what you're actually going for.
I'm surprised you don't see more. I'm not sure if I'm quoting this manufacturer wrong, but I think it's Mountain Pass Performance. I know they do with Tesla stuff, but did they also not do that hybrid Nissan Z? Was that Mountain Pass?
KELS, that was
KERS or something.
Well, he names his 350Z KELS, right?
Okay, sorry. So KELS.
Yeah, that's Sasha Annis. He's the local guy.
Right.
So, on point dyno.
I forgot that was him. Yeah. He had a recent excursion with him at Plaid at Cayuga.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
That's twice in 1 year that a car went up the hill.
Yeah.
I won't get into that.
Well, I mean,
it wasn't his fault.
No, he's a good
and
driver.
that's maybe a little plug for Sasha there. No, but what I wanted to talk about was I'm surprised at that drivetrain setup where he did a KERS or a hybrid setup on the end of the motor. That's not more common. To just take your existing motor, like perfect example, you've got like a Type R Honda motor that revs to Timbuktu. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that and also just have that supplemental torque? You know?
Well, I mean, there's a company called Vonnen, and what they do is they actually replace the flywheel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Clutch flywheel combo with a hybrid motor.
Okay.
Right. So it does a lot of torque fill. So Vonnen has something that's plug and play for a lot of the Porsches. So the Porsche applications, you throw it in there, and it's expensive. It's like $80,000 US.
Whoa.
You know, but it gives you like 150 horsepower shove. So, you know, you can throw it into a GT3 and you'll have like, you know.
Can I point out that NOS 150 shop is illegal? But this is legal. So anyway, that's massive. That's
but
huge.
But it's also reversible, right? So you're literally, all you're doing is dropping the tranny, throwing this motor system in and replacing the flywheel clutch combo. And it's completely
which
reversible.
is insane because obviously that's a small space that you're
working with.
Throw
the battery and the controller in there, and they already have, you know, it fits in the front and everything. So there are ways to do that, right? It's still really expensive, but it's pretty.
So it's there.
It's ingenious.
That's the nice part is I personally believe, and I think this is not news to anyone, but like any tech, all this battery and electric motor stuff is just going to come down in price. As it gets more common and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So on my side of things, where I work, we actually helped a guy do a test. It wasn't a Tesla motor. I forgot what motor it was, but electric swaps that he put it in his little dinghy boat, which was kind of weird. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just put the batteries in the hull of the boat." And I'm like, you know, it actually kind of makes sense as long as it floats. So Tesla swap, motor swap, all the things, I guess. Other interesting cars on the high end of scale. It was a Bugatti there. Which one was at the show?
It was a Devo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had a Devo. That was, I mean, you don't see
like
those too often.
Over a $2 million car, maybe more now.
Yeah, probably more. I think it's like 3.5.
Beautiful car, though. Beautiful car.
And I don't know what else they had. A lot of the celebrity cars there. Some Sheepy Race, Adam LZ. The Stradman had his Chiron, or was a Veyron. And then he had his big 6-wheeler Jeep there on display.
Speaking of six wheels, there was that, again, another truck that impressed. What was that? The father-son duo.
Yeah, the DeBertis.
Yeah, from Motor Trend, right?
They had a CK 6-wheeler, an older. That thing was beautiful too. Really,
huge wheels
really well.
is what stands out for me, but I mean, like.
Yeah, with the red centers, it was a really nice car.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were there. I mean, you know, SEMA is the one place you can go to, and you literally stumble on all these so-called celebrities or famous people in the industry, and they're all there. And it's nice because everyone walking around the show is in the industry. So they're shop owners or techs and stuff like that. So these guys, they don't get like completely swarmed by the general public, because the general public isn't really that general.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So they're there just talking away and answering questions, and I'm sure had they stepped out of the building, they would have been swarmed, you know, because they're considered celebrities.
Well, and that's part of it too, is with all this, the reasoning behind the show being different this year and coming back was obviously it was just industry people. Yeah. It was a lot more tight, limits on space and stuff like that, and obviously then it's only the industry people. Because it's not just that you get the industry people, but then the industry person's wife or husband or whatnot.
I mean, they're showing the numbers at the end. You know, although it's, you know, the numbers were considerably lower. So normally they would have over 200,000 people. I think they had like 140,000 this year, and
which is still a massive amount. But that makes it easier to go through the booth, see the show.
I liked it personally because you know, I was able to get pictures of cars without waiting 10 minutes for like the crowds to disperse, just to get like a full shot of the car.
That makes sense.
And the lineups for the food wasn't as long, and just everything was just more enjoyable with the lack of people there. So it was. It sucked having to wear a mask. I mean, they had like a pretty strict mask policy for the whole show, but that was good. Everyone respected it.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's the main thing.
So
after that, you guys decided to head up to LA.
Yeah. So after the show, we spent the weekend in LA and we visited a few things. We stopped off at the Porsche Experience Center. And we were looking at some of the cars and things that they had on display there, and they're working on some really incredible cars there at the Porsche America.
Now
Porsche North America.
That's some news stuff there, actually, is that we are expecting a Porsche Experience Center to come to, was that North York?
Anyway, somewhere here in the GTA.
Somewhere in the GTA. Yeah. It's which is pretty cool. And the Experience Center is obviously, it's a showroom of cars, but also there's a track, and is there an off-road track too for the SUVs?
There was a small off-road track.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Skid school, stuff like that. So.
It's an experience. Oh yeah, the skid school. So like flood the track.
That's it. Yeah, they had like a special type of asphalt there. Actually, when it gets wet, it gets really slick.
Oh, cool.
So, so that was pretty cool. And then we stopped at Hurican, and obviously
they were still at the show.
Yeah, all the Hurican crew were at the show, and we knew that, but we just stopped there anyways to got some swag and talked to the skeleton crew that was like left behind there to man the shop.
Neat to be there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And they're just around the corner. It was like literally a couple miles from Porsche. So
you were telling me you went to a place that had some really bad tuna as well.
Yeah,
I like the tuna here.
Tuna's the way.
All right. I mean, okay. So
if you're in LA.
So we were at the Peterson. We stopped at this Peterson Museum, and just not too far from there was downtown LA, and that's where they had the Fast and Furious house, the Torettos. Yeah. So we just happened to stop by.
Nobody eats the tuna there.
No, they eat the tuna. They don't eat the crust.
Bullshit, asshole. No one likes the tuna here.
Oh yeah. Whatever. Yeah. We're gonna quote the lines.
Yeah.
So okay.
No crust.
No crust.
So let's get back to the Peterson here, because that's something that you came away with. We talked about this episode.
We spent the whole day at the Peterson. I mean, this thing was.
We always talk about what we're gonna bring to you on the podcast, and I want you to know that SEMA almost didn't even come up. I had to jog Randy's memory for this episode. We went through the pictures, but the Peterson, he couldn't stop talking about. So that if you're gonna go. Okay, you've been to a bunch of different car person things in your life.
Not only person. Okay, so I've gone to the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart. I've gone to Mercedes Museum, also in Stuttgart.
But you've been to the Nürburgring too. Yeah, you've been to.
There's BMW factory tours, BMW Museum in Munich.
You've been to Le Mans. Like you've been a lot of places. Yeah. Where would the Peterson rank for you now?
By far the best.
Okay, so there you go.
Absolutely, I was blown away by the stuff they had there.
Okay.
And like I thought as a car enthusiast that I would know a lot of these older cars and what they are, and I learned so much on that one day.
Yeah.
Like I literally left there and I was like, and the thing is like. There's certain areas of the museum that you're not allowed to take pictures. So I was forced to go into the gift shop and buy a coffee table book explaining a lot. And I'm glad I did, because you can actually, I was going through it and I was reading it on the plane on the way back, and they go into so much detail on all these cars and the history of these manufacturers and stuff. It's incredible.
This is a full circle thing, because when you're a kid, we talk, you go through magazines and stuff like that. But I know too, like for me, I remember having like a German cars coffee table book from like the old cars all the way through to whatever 1990 cars, and all you do is you leaf through, oh wow, the details that you don't know about, or your favorite YouTube person doesn't cover, right? And it's funny to hear that from you now.
It's incredible. So I mean, anyways, the Peterson, for people that don't really know what it is, Peterson Publishing is a large publisher, and back in the 70s, 80s, there's no internet. Everyone was getting their information on magazines, and Hot Rod Magazine was one of the most famous ones when it comes to the cars. Of course, you got Motor Trend, Car and Driver.
Okay, but no one was like in terms of enthusiasts. It was an enthusiast magazine where people actually were into it, because no one was modifying Hondas, no one was modifying Ferraris. Yeah. It was literally that was the like.
It was 4-wheel drive and Hot Rod Magazine. Those are the two, because it's basically that
that's where it all started.
Those are the two big genres in US, right? And the Peterson owned both of them, and I think
then Motor Trend.
I think they had like as much as a $500 million in circulation.
Oh wow! Like subscriptions and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean that's where they've accumulated a lot of the wealth, and then a lot of this wealth they were able to purchase a lot of these one-off and really rare pieces, these cars, right? So they have this museum. It's a 3-level museum of some of the most incredible things. And then what they don't have on display upstairs in the museum, they have an underground parking garage, and they call it the vault. And this is where you're not allowed to take pictures. So the vault was an extra 90-minute tour that you had to book. Yeah. And thankfully I knew about this before even leaving the country. So I had already like.
You had to book it like a week in advance.
I had to book it a week in advance to get our one slot in, and luckily, I mean, you can't just show up and say, "Hey, can I get a vault tour?" This is booked out like a week in advance, easily, or maybe even more.
Okay.
But just walking down there and let me say, like, I have snuck some pictures in my time, in other museums where there's no photography allowed, but they were so strict that they had the one tour guide that knows his stuff. And they had 2 tour guides behind, and there was a small group. It was only 10 people, but they had 2 tour guides behind, making sure that nobody slips their phone out to snap some pictures. So, and I didn't want to ruin it either. Like, I didn't want to get kicked out.
You want to be that guy that's kicked out for that picture.
Yeah, because I'm, just walking in there, just seeing everything you're around. I was just trying to absorb everything, and I knew I was just going to grab a book later and just read up on it and stuff. So.
Okay, so
some pretty incredible things. I mean, I wish I could like regurgitate a lot of the stuff because a lot of them were cars that I've never even heard of. Like some.
Let's dive through some topics. So we're going to go through a lot.
Well, okay, they had a lot of movie cars.
Okay.
They had a lot of movie cars there. They had the General Lee. They had Kit. They had like a lot of the Batmobiles, like different iterations of the Batmobiles.
Original?
No, we're talking about just originals.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, they don't have. These are all running originals. Some of them even have like patina or like. Marks and dents from the actual filming or accidents that happened there.
Because there's 2 types of movie cars. I forgot the actual official name, but there's the movie car that was used as show. It was built as it has the right motor, the right body, the right paint, and then you have all the other cars that are just they're for scrap.
I think they call it the hero car.
Yeah, the hero car.
They have all the other ones.
Okay.
Just basically.
So these were all majority were hero cars.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. They're all running. They had a lot of the Amber. So the Amber is an award that it's kind of like the Riddler. It's like an award that they give to like certain hot rods and over the years, the best ones, the best of the best, and they had probably a dozen of them under there.
Okay.
They had some Boyd Coddington cars. They had Saddam Hussein's Mercedes.
Pause there for a second. Okay. I want to go back here because that actually ties together because you were saying at SEMA they had a Boyd Coddington display.
They did. Actually, they did. In the
I'll put some pictures up, obviously. But
in the North Hall, they had a whole section of just Boyd's cars. They must have had 30 cars of his there.
And we were looking Boyd Coddington is obviously he was a hot rod tuner, but he was. When did he kind of come up? Mid '90s, early '90s, or was it earlier than that?
Yeah,
around there, right? Yeah. But I remember he was doing stuff differently, like a lot more curved, a lot more modern. And for example, we were looking at one of the cars in the Peterson was a beautiful curved coupe, your usual thing, but that little bit more modern. And underneath the hood was a Mitsubishi 4-cylinder. From an Eclipse.
Yeah, it was Eclipse 2-liter.
But it was done beautifully, and obviously, it fits in the car. It looks great.
Well,
so
I
that's
think it's because the engine bay gets so small.
You wouldn't have fit a V8 in there, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but speaking of small motors, though, so you blew my mind with a certain Ferrari.
Yes. So this car was arguably the most expensive car in the world. Right. So right now, officially, the most expensive car in the world sold at Barrett-Jackson for like 40 or 60 million. It was an old Ferrari 250 GTO, and there were dozens of these Ferraris made. Of
course.
This Ferrari that was in the vault was one of 2, and it was the very first Ferrari ever produced by Enzo.
Okay.
It was in 1937. It was a Type 125. 125 stands for 125 cc per cylinder.
Okay.
That means it was a V12. That was a 1.5 liter V12.
Which is that just doesn't make sense because.
Yeah. So I mean the pistons must have been this small, right?
Tiny, right? And the car doesn't look big. Obviously, pictures are up, but it's a small car.
Yeah. So this is a priceless car. I mean, this thing must be $150, $200 million.
If you don't know Ferrari other than the cologne and the shirts in the Puma store, Ferrari is this big racing firm.
Yeah.
And it's like this car, what it represented is basically Ferrari loved cars. Enzo Ferrari loved cars. He ended up racing for and working for Alfa Romeo. And then basically he did one of these and said, I'm making my own car one day. And this was the car.
This is the first car,
Which, I mean, that story right there, that's the beginning of it all. There's no other way of putting it.
And that's just an example of one of many cars in the vault here. They had a concept clay version, full scale of the Mazda RX-7 FD from 1990 that was actually at the Tokyo Auto Salon there. They had it there. It was at the full clay, black window.
I wonder if that was more, is it heavier or less heavy than a full car? But you were saying, and that, the shape was obviously different.
It was the proportions were a little bit different.
But you could tell it was the RX-7.
Oh, yeah, it was an RX-7. It just had,
But something beautiful, right?
Certain things were off, from what you normally see. They had the first Honda. They had N600, Honda number 1. That was there too.
Was the N600, was that actually a Civic, or was it just called the N600? That was the basis of it all, right? That was,
that was the very first one. So,
now, go back to some of that randomness. Saddam Hussein's Benz?
Yeah, they had a large 600 Pullman limo with the flag stakes on the corners, and they still had, it was just riddled. It had bullet holes on it.
Oh, no way.
Hey, what are all these holes?
These are speed holes to make the car go faster.
I would say patina. It was the original patina.
Did he die in it or
no? He didn't. But they didn't fix it because
they're speed holes. They make the car go faster.
Yeah. They had that, and they had a lot of really famous cars. Every car in there has a story.
Okay.
A lot of race cars too.
Yeah, right. There was McLaren. There was the one-off Eagle was there, which Eagle was a Formula One manufacturer. Then they made one prototype, if I'm not mistaken, a Le Mans type car. Bugattis.
Yeah.
We were talking serious money.
Quite a few Bugatti Type 1s and
Type 1 and was a Type 57.
Yeah.
Which okay. First of all, let's have a discussion here.
Yeah.
We are not old car people, okay? Obviously.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for the manufacturing of these cars. You look at the way the detail work, the chrome on the cars, the way the gills or vents were cut into the panels, and we're talking years makes no difference. 90 years ago, 100 years ago in some cases.
Yeah, well, so back then they had it was all Coachworks. So they would take the chassis and they would take it to a coach builder, and the coach builder would they would deck out the interior, and they would actually, and a lot of these coach built cars are one-offs, right? So somebody an eccentric, millionaire back then would want a car, and
back then it would have been 100,000-aire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. But, they're all one-off coach built, with a Bentley or a Rolls Royce power, but the body and the interior would look totally different because it'd just be made for that one customer.
Well, they're like the original Phantom. You saw the original Rolls Royce Phantom.
Yeah.
And I mean, even some of the interiors, it literally looks like, you go to a vintage store, a really expensive place for furniture, and you see these. They look ugly, but they'll have these neat little prints on the fabric and all the woods ornate. And you're this is just, I would never sit in that because that's uncomfortable, but it looks nice.
Yeah. They also had some one-off skunk work projects where they would take a Cadillac and it would be designed by Pininfarina.
Yeah.
Or some of the cars designed by Bertoni.
There was a Ghia Vet or something, or Ghia Cadillac.
It was it was just they had these strange one-offs. Again, I learned so much when I was there, so I had to buy these these books just to reference it, because again, it would have been nice if I could take a picture. But
first things first, this building is roughly how old? This museum has been around for what, 40 years?
Yeah, I think they reskinned it not too long ago.
And it's beautiful. So the whole point, I was looking this up here, the whole point of this building is just to look between three different things.
The outside.
The outside.
Yeah.
They wanted it to look like a car in a wind tunnel. You get the airstream of fog or smoke to see the airflow, and then tail lights. That when you get the tails on the taillights.
Yeah, that's the color, the red.
And then the flow of a woman's dress.
Yeah, and
those three things right there. I can just picture a building that's going to be sexy based on those three images, and they nailed it. That building alone is pretty cool to see from the outside, right? So. I mean, on the inside of things, you dive in and what was the one room that you went in? It had I remember because it had the Vector. I personally love a Vector.
Yeah,
right.
Well, that's the upstairs museum part. So they had actually
in one room. Tell me about this one room.
Well, they had a row, basically a row of modern supercars that we can all kind of relate to, which included the 959, the Yellowbird, a BMW M1, a Vector W8. They had a Maserati MC12. They had a Saleen S7. What else? They had a Lancia Stratos, a Lamborghini Miura. I mean, come on. And they're all
in one space.
Yeah, in one space, like, with one camera.
Every poster that you could have wanted to have on your wall, and it's like, well, here's all the cars.
They had a Shelby Cobra signed by Shelby himself. That thing was probably worth $20 million.
Okay, here's the thing. Yeah. Okay, well, that's a lot of money. What I was gonna say is that I feel like Shelby's just signed a bunch of things. Because how many guys sit there with their like? Come on, just sign my glove box.
I think there's like one of like maybe 20 original Cobras left, right?
That's true. So, and don't get me wrong, no disrespect to Shelby. Yeah. It's just that's if I could pick one car person who signed a lot of dashboards, that'd be the guy I pick. Okay, so on the British side, I personally love. There was a Jag, was it XKC? Mm-hmm. Just a beautiful bodied car. Yeah. Like that's something that you'd want to see. No, it was a XKSS, right? Beautiful, big old fenders and just curvy and beautiful. And that was like a car that was like stupid fast in the 50s. I
remember as a kid reading up on this one car in the late 80s called the Isdera Commodore. And it was basically a V12 powered hypercar. It had a rearview mirror on the roof.
Oh yeah, like a periscope style?
Yeah, I couldn't believe they had that there. I was blown away when I saw that. This is something that I just, I remember from magazines as a kid reading up on. They had the McLaren F1 LM there. Yeah. They had a couple of Ford GTs. Yeah.
They had the original 911, but it wasn't a 911.
Yeah, it was a 901. So this is before Porsche was forced to change their nomenclature to 911. I believe it's because Peugeot had the rights to any 3-digit number with a 0 in the middle, because Porsche originally wanted to start them with a 901, et cetera, et cetera. So they had to change it.
Ridiculous.
This is one of those original cars here.
Okay, so another thing tying back that there was a ton of at SEMA for some reason was DeLoreans.
There was a couple. There was one.
Like it was a turbocharged one.
There was a turbocharged one.
The Toyo booth.
Yeah, and there was an electric one as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there's a Tesla-powered DeLorean. And then at the Peterson, there was a gold one. It was actually a one-off. Like a one-off in gold. I mean, it was several $100,000 in gold was... in the paint was...
Well, not just the paint. Like, you look right down to that exhaust pipe. The exhaust pipe is freaking gold for Pete's sakes. And then, so, like, obviously there were some U.S. cars. So you had, like, the Ford GT40 was there, like, the originals, the Mark... I love how they went, like, as Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, and it was literally, let's revise it every year to make it faster.
Yeah.
But, because that was one of the other cars in the Toyo booth you were talking about, was that Toyo GT.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a super performance kit car. I think. But,
oh, really?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, sexy car though.
It's still, yeah.
One thing about all these old cars, when we talk about all these old Bugattis and what Delahis and like Model T, the most fascinating part, if you don't want to talk about the coachwork, is that every single one they didn't have standardized gas pedal on the right, clutch on the left. It was. You didn't know what you were going to get for controls.
Yeah.
A lot of them you were like advancing spark on the steering wheel just to get it right, choking it, to see the evolution, I imagine, in the Peterson as well between all the different cars would have been pretty wild to see.
Also, a lot of cars back in the 30s were actually right-hand drive.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just coming out of Britain because that's where the money was?
Not even, no. I mean, like that number 1 Ferrari, that first Ferrari, that was a right-hand drive car.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and oddly enough, and even like they actually shaped the door, the driver door, a little bit lower, so you had more leverage on that big steering wheel. You wouldn't hit your elbow on the door. It was weird.
Oh yeah. So there was one car in the Peterson, this for me, it was just such a random car. I love the Alpina. Alpine. Sorry. Alpine.
See the BMW and us just keeps like...
No, it just oozes. No, the Alpine, like the Rally Alpine, because for me, like
the 110, right?
We talk about wide body cars, and this was for me the original wide body. Like I know other cars did it.
Yeah.
But here they took like this little 110.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's go rallying. And I think I'd love to know how much they must have added, like a good couple of inches. But the car was tiny. The car was tiny, and look at it. It literally looks like a little dog that's ready to pounce to a rally stage.
Yeah, it's really wide.
Was there any other like rally cars or stuff like that in there, or probably like WRC Subaru stuff? Probably not.
No, not so much.
So we talked about cars that basically back in the day they would rebody chassis. You'd get a motor, you'd get a set of wheels and stuff, and then they just rebody it.
Yeah, so I think some of the designers in Detroit were actually collaborating with some of the designers in Europe because a lot of their clientele were gravitating towards the exotic European cars. So in order to get a little bit of, I think they wanted to basically see if they're able to pull off the same thing by getting the design from Europe, but having keeping the sales at home here. So the Cadillac would have a Ghia. It was just a concept. I don't think it actually.
Well, for me, everything but the front of that car actually for the period looks pretty slick.
Yeah.
But there was another one that was what was it? They have the Corvette that was done by Ital Design.
Yeah.
Or no, was it Scaglietti or whatever? Or
that looked just basically like a Ferrari 250.
Yeah.
It was pretty much like a Ferrari bodied Corvette, right? Interior, exterior, everything. But again, it's just a prototype, right? These are one-offs, and they happen to be there at the museum, and these are things that I learned about that didn't exist. Right?
So in some cases, manufacturers melt every single car or destroy every single car, but you got to see. For me, which was a childhood car that I saw at I remember going to the Epcot Center and being like, oh, wow, look at this ugly GM.
The EV1.
The EV1.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember they were only in silver, and here's this red one that's sitting there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not something you get to see.
It's not like a wow, right?
No,
but it was the beginning of electric cars.
Yeah, and you look at that, you're like, oh my God, this is what we thought the future was going to be like, 40 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
true enough. Now, also some randomness. So race cars.
Mm-hmm.
Drag racing back in the day.
Oh, in the 30s, yeah.
Holy smokes. Okay, so one thing that there's a fact about these cars I love.
Yeah.
You'll notice.
So they call them rail cars. The rail cars. So basically, the modern dragster has, the driver, then the motor behind, and then the wheels at the back.
That's the setup. And that was done not for weight distribution, but for safety.
Yeah.
Because they used to have the drivers literally sit on top of or behind the differential.
Right between the rear tires.
Okay, so here you have in your spot these two gears that are literally have the force of all these super powerful cars.
8,000 horsepower.
Yeah, maybe not in the 30s, but still
probably at least 4,000.
Yeah, true. Well, still, okay. The car I'm going to show you from the Peterson, it still did under an 8-second quarter.
Like 730 or something, yeah.
Right? Yeah. 2 motors in the front of it.
Yeah.
And these diffs used to blow up in guys' crotches all the time.
Just take out their legs, amputate.
All 3 of them. And it was, so just for pure awe, I'm like, that is just insanity to me. So to see that kind of thing is rare, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would only see it in a museum, but obviously they gave you the detail on the car and teach you about that kind of stuff, which is random, right?
It was awesome, yeah.
So it's
so basically, cool. If you have a chance, when you go to LA, you got to go check out the Peterson. You really do. If you got any sort of fuel running coursing through your veins,
no brainer.
Yeah, you got to go there. You absolutely have to go there. It's pretty incredible.
So with that said, we covered off a lot this episode.
Yep.
Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again next month.
Yep.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you.